All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm Diane Monig. I'm the Director of Programs here at the ARC of Northern Virginia. I have been organizing this transition series for a number of years, and this is the first time it's virtual, and we're getting the opportunity to reach lots of people. If you read my email, we had over 100, we got some more over the weekend, so over 180 people registered. Um, the vast majority of those people or those families and also disability professionals, transition coordinators, teachers, a lot of them from Fairfax County, followed closely by Loudoun County and Prince William, and then of course Alexandria and Arlington, and then kind of a smattering of people throughout the state of Virginia, and then a handful also from Maryland and DC. And then I also wanted to share that the majority of the families who registered had children between the ages of 15 to 26, with just a few a little bit older than that. And again, the vast majority from public schools, but then also a handful from some private schools and also quite a number of students who are homeschooled. So a lot of the information we're going to share today or throughout the series, sometimes it's geared towards people who are in public school. But I am, for as far as like transition planning, but I am happy to answer any questions if you are in private school or homeschool, or if we want to do an individual session around information for those families. That is absolutely something that we can arrange. Okay, so with that, let's get started. So what I'm going to talk first about is kind of an overview of the Arc of Northern Virginia, again, because there are families coming from everywhere. So I want to talk a little bit about us first and our resources. Then we're going to talk a little bit about transition and life and future planning, because it's all kind of rolled into one. And then finally, we're going to talk about how to navigate this virtual series, just to make sure that you get the most out of it. So a little about the ARC of Northern Virginia. We are the local chapter of a national organization. There are 21 chapters in Virginia and then over 600 across the country. And every ARC is a little bit different, but our mission is all the same. And that's to promote and protect the human rights of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and support their full inclusion in the community. We were founded in 1962 by families who were looking for school services for their children. And like I said, we're affiliated with the ARC of the US and the ARC of Virginia. Our ARC is primarily an education and advocacy ARC, and I'm going to talk more about our resources. But we're pretty small compared to some other ARCs. We have 30 staff, whereas some ARCs like in Prince William, in Loudoun County, have large staffs because they provide lots of programs, everything from school services to respite to employment to residential services. So every ARC is just a bit different. Our services, as I mentioned, are to educate and empower families. So we do this by offering educational events just like this, the Transition Series. We also have Transition Points. That's our overarching program where we provide information for families across the lifespan. So from early intervention through special education. And these three that are highlighted here are all available on our website. And these are the transition age years. So that yellow one is about transitioning from school to adult services. The green one is on employment and day supports. And then the orange one is about finding a home. These are also available in 6 different languages. So for those disability professionals who are listening in, if you're working with other families, we have lots and lots of materials in Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean, Amharic, Chinese, and Vietnamese. So lots of different resources, especially in Spanish. We do webinars throughout the year on a variety of different life planning topics. All of those are archived on our YouTube channel. We do transition lunch and learns twice a month, which is just a very short overview of transition. It's very informal roundtable to get families to ask questions and dialogue. We also have an information and referral portal on our website. So when you have a question, you can just type it in. Our Director of Advocacy, Lucy Beadnell, manages our information and referral portal. And then we also have an amazing resource library on our website that has one-pagers, fact sheets, a variety of short documents that explain very complex things in a simple manner. Those are great, great resources. Other services, as I mentioned, we have a Director of Advocacy. We provide both local and state legislative advocacy. Lucy organizes families to meet with legislators one-on-one. She's organizing congressional forums. If you go to our website, those are upcoming. You can learn more about those. We also do self-advocacy. We have two people first groups. One's for young adults, so that's for young people in this transition age, and I facilitate that one. And then we also have People First, A Life Like Yours Toastmasters, which is a real Toastmasters chapter. So they work on public speaking skills and also legislative advocacy issues. We also provide direct services. We contract with local community services boards for people who have a DD waiver, a developmental disabilities waiver. And we also we have a program that serves 50 individuals where we serve as guardian of last resort. We have a special needs trust program, both family funded and self-funded. I'm not going to go into that because we're going to have a whole presentation on it. But you can learn more about that on a routine basis by attending Trust Talk Tuesdays, which are small, informal, just like the Lunch and Learns, small, informal roundtables to get more information, and First Fridays, which are general information around like financial planning. And then we also have our Tech for Independent Living program. This program has been around for a number of years, but this year with our new app called Arc to Independence, this was just created and launched in October of this year. Last year, October 2023, where we develop customized lessons around the areas of daily living, travel training, employment, and safety lessons, all available on your phone or a tablet. I mentioned we do Transition Lunch and Learn. We also do, and I mentioned the Trust Talk Tuesdays. We have a similar program called Building Independence with the TFIL team, or the Tech for Independent Living team. So you can learn more about our app. So you can this app is used, like I mentioned, we have general lessons for people, but we also have customized lessons to help with all of these individual skills or just some of our general content in our library. This program, we also offer travel training experiences, both on the metro and the bus. And we do safety workshops, developing safety skills in the workplace, at school, out in the community. And if you want to learn more about this program, I have the email address there. And all of our programs at the ARC of Northern Virginia are funded by grants, fundraising events, donations, and membership. Okay, so why you're here today. So let's talk about all of this transition planning. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I have the honor of facilitating our People First for Young Adults group, which actually grew out of the very first transition series we had a number of years ago. For those who have maybe participated in our transition series before, it has always been held in person with kind of dual tracks. At one time, it was over 3 days, then it was over 2 days in most recent years. But while parents were attending workshops, just like you are now, the students were in another room working on social skills, life skills, recreation skills, employment skills, communication skills, all of those things that are needed as you're transitioning from school to adult life and getting prepared for that. So we've continued that People First group. Like I said, we meet once a month and we discuss issues around obviously self-advocacy and learning to speak up for yourself, but also what do you want in your adult life? And what I hear from all of these people are they want to have a job. They want to have a meaningful day. Maybe that's a day program or volunteering. They want to pursue their passions and their recreational interests. We have someone who sails. We have someone who's interested in the Civil War, video games, traveling, um, a variety of different, just like anyone else, lots of interests in a lot of different things. They want to have boyfriends, girlfriends, just friends to go out with. Lots of them want to live in their own apartment someday or live with friends. So those are the things they're thinking about, as you probably know, being parents. But while they're thinking about all of those things, you are thinking about all of these things. As your young person is transitioning, you have to enter into this whole new world that's based on eligibility requirements and then funding availabilities. And in different organizations, none is the same. Wait lists are in different places. Eligibility requirements are different across the board. So it's a really, really difficult time to navigate. And as I showed you this poor person here with all of those acronyms, I'm going to share with you later on in your kind of resource packet, a glossary for all of these acronyms to help you understand it a little bit better. Before we go on, because this session that I want to talk about is just kind of getting prepared for everything you're going to hear in the upcoming workshops. So I think for families, sometimes, like I mentioned, this is a whole new world, as you know. And how do people connect with all of these different organizations, and how do they all intersect? So you're going to hear, oops, I lost my page. You're going to hear a lot about looking at adult service providers or employment service organizations. These people here, these adult service providers, are in the middle. And we're going to talk a little bit more about those. They range from individual supported employment providers that are maybe small to large organizations that provide day support, group supported employment, and individual employment. So lots of different services. Adult service providers, these are the organizations you're going to be working with. They work with different areas of funding streams. And those primarily come through the CSB, which is the Community Services Board. That's the point of entry. And then also DARS, the Department of Aging and Rehab Services. The biggest things to note about these two organizations are the Community Services Board, which administers the Medicaid Developmental Disabilities Waiver. They offer lifelong supports in a whole host of areas that allow your loved one to live in the community successfully. As opposed to DARS, the Department of Aging and Rehab Services, which offers very short-term supports, a minimum number of hours that's really just focused on employment, whereas a DD waiver is focused on all types of lifelong supports. DARS is just focused on an employment goal. If you live in Fairfax, Arlington, or Alexandria, you have a kind of another source of funding if you don't have a developmental disabilities waiver yet. You have access to services that are funded through employment and day support services that are funded through the CSB. And that could be either directly to an employment provider or for Fairfax and Arlington in the form of self-directed services that allows you to kind of plan your own day. If maybe the day support programs aren't really working for you, or you want a little more creativity. DARS has kind of two streams of funding or two kinds of programs while you're in school. One is their pre-employment and transition services program. This is available to all students who have a disability while they're in school. And they work on services around building self-advocacy skills, building those employment skills, workplace readiness training, Some of them are done one-on-one, some of them are done in small groups. And then if your child is interested in competitive integrated employment, then they would apply to DARS to apply for what's called VR, or vocational rehabilitation services, where they provide that one-on-one support to obtain a job. So that means taking them out on looking for a job, supporting them around interviews, and then initial job training, and then they fade away after that. Um, I'm going to share with you as we go through this a little bit later. I'm going to share with you, we have a section where you're going to have access to all kinds of resources and information. We have a list around it's called Understanding and Connecting to Employment Service Organizations or Adult Providers. And in that list, it lists all of the organizations in our area from varied sizes. And over the last few years, there have been some that have been started mostly by families, parents, other relatives, around employment. Some are small day programs, some are smaller employment programs, and some of those accept private pay. So that's just kind of another source to look at if you're looking to be a little bit creative. So where do you begin with all of this? So all of this, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about life planning, transition planning, which turns into future plannings. And this is all an ongoing, evolving process. And I would love to say that some of it is a checklist that you can just check off and be done. But as you know, it's kind of evolving. But with that being said, there are some things that you can absolutely do and kind of check off your list. One is to apply for a Medicaid DD waiver. You also want to talk with your ETR about transition services. I want to back up for 1 minute because everything that I'm talking about here, almost everything, there is a webinar for. So that's why I'm not going into too great a detail. So applying for a Medicaid waiver, talking to your transition coordinator about transition services in your school system, exploring adult service providers. So that list that I just mentioned, Googling them, calling them, doing some tours if it's a day support program, and informational interviews with them to try and learn more. Apply for pre-employment and transition services with DARS. You want to apply for supplemental security income, that's SSI, the month after your child turns 18. Obtain a government-issued ID. If your child is male, register for the Selective Service. And then part of that future planning, establishing a special needs trust and write a will. And then thinking about decision-making supports that may include powers of attorney or guardianship. And we're going to talk more about those different legal authority. We have two workshops around those issues. Also thinking about maybe it's time to register your child to vote. Maybe you need to be thinking about how is your child going to get around. Maybe they can learn to travel in the community by themselves and apply for a reduced fare card. Or maybe they want to apply for Metro Access, which is a door-to-door paratransit service. Or maybe they're interested in exploring that maybe they can drive and looking at how to get a learner's permit and how to actually learn to drive. And then finally, also looking at post-secondary options, whether that be Northern Virginia Community College, a life skills program like Mason Life, or a regular 4-year college. We're going to have someone come talk about those different college options and how to determine which is the right one for you and your family. And then you're also looking at the future, just when they transition out of school, what does that look like? How do you continue building on all of the skills they've learned in school? Things aside from that day program or employment. So constantly looking at social and recreation opportunities and what's available for them to participate in the community. We have a great parent panel coming up, and they're going to talk in part of that, they're going to talk about the social and recreation opportunities that their children have participated in. We also have a list that you'll have access to of social and recreation opportunities, both in person and virtually, that are available all of the time. Also thinking about building a supported decision-making team. Who are the people in your child's life that help them make decisions? How do you make that kind of circle of support bigger as they get older and they go into the community? Sometimes it's a mix of family, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, paid staff, neighbors. How do you make your child's kind of circle bigger and increase that support? And then maybe down the road, thinking about housing options. So we're going to have a workshop on that. And then building a future plan. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. So I want to refer you to, so as I mentioned, there's that kind of road from school to those adult services. But entwined with all of that is thinking not just about getting out of school and getting the services, but how do you make your child's life better? How does your child get a meaningful day? How do they interact in the community? How do they achieve goals that they have for themselves and for you? And I found a couple of tools. I have to say I like this one the best. We're going to have, in just a few minutes, we're going to have a parent. His name is Doug McCallum. I'm so grateful to have him with us today. His son just recently graduated from school, and so he's in this process just as you are. And he spent a lot of time over the last few years trying to figure out how this works. He has a tool that he uses, and he'll share that with you. But this is a kind of a life planning tool about thinking about not only, we talk so much about like daily life and employment, but then what's healthy living look like? Does that involve exercises, exercising, being in joining a gym? What does a healthy lifestyle look like? Being a part of your community, whether it's through volunteering or through church. Safety and security. What does that look like if you're living in your own home? Advocacy and engagement. And we're going to, like we talked a little bit about registering to vote, how to educate your child about, participating in the community in that way. And who are the people in their family that they can reach out to? Who are the people in their community? And kind of looking at that holistic big picture. So I'm going to show you how to connect to all of these things. But this program called Life Course has a great website with lots of webinars to educate you on how to do this, how to plan for the future, and lots of tools. This is one of the many kind of handouts that they use to help families think about with what does life look like? Who are the people involved? What are your child's personal strengths? Who are the relationships that they have that are important to them? Is there technology that helps them build their skills? What eligibility benefits do they receive? And how do they all intersect and how to kind of put it together? So I'm going to share with you, how to access all this information, but I think it's a great starting point to think about the future. And then there's also this element of getting organized. How do you keep all of this information together? Not just looking at the goals that you have, thinking holistically, but what is all the stuff that you have to keep track of? Medical information, IEP information. Where do you keep all of that? And sometimes lots of families, we all have those big binders. But there's lots of things that are coming online that are virtual. The ARC, that's the National ARC, has a section on their website called the Center for Future Planning. And in that you can build a future plan, which really is just, adding a lot of logistical information in there, contact information, and it stores it for you in the cloud. And then this other program called the Danny Plan, which I just heard of just a couple of weeks ago. We have a representative, the founder and father who created that program. They're going to come speak with us on Friday, I believe. And this is a program that you have to pay for, but it's pretty reasonable, and you can put lots of information, store it in the cloud. You have access to it. You can share it with different people. You can share different sections of it with other people. Anyway, it's a great, great tool. I've been playing around with it a little bit. So I wanted to share those two resources with you. And so that's all I have for me. So I'm going to turn it over. Well, let me just see real quick. If anybody has any questions, I'll take those. You can type them in the Q&A box or the chat box, and I will answer those. But then I'm going to turn it over to Doug McCallum, who I'm so happy to have with us today to share kind of his parent perspective on transition planning. And then we'll end with just going through some resources. So does anybody have any questions for me before I move on? Okay. No, well, I will turn it over to you, Doug. Thank you.
You bet. Hi, everybody. I'm Doug McCallum, and good afternoon. And I'm here because I just went through this transition process over the last year and a half. My son graduated in last June, and we're going to get the first slide up. And I'm one of those still using the big binder. So I've learned 5 things today I wrote down that I still haven't known, and I follow everything. I think I had followed everything I could. But anyway, I fumbled my way through this process, and I have a few points that I wish someone had referred to me at when I started this thing. Diane has done a million wonderful things that I did not know anything about a year and a half ago. So the best point is hang with this transition program. Even those slides were a bit overwhelming if I put myself back into me starting this process with some of the things she talked about, but stay with it and it'll all make sense as you take this in smaller bites after this first thing. And this transition series, as I talked to Diane about how she's got it outlined, covers all the points, all the areas where we ran into problems and had to figure things out for ourselves. And like I said, we're still learning with the ARC. If you haven't signed up for their monthly newsletter, please do. I read it religiously. Everybody's situation is different. For us, you see our background on the left. So obviously that doesn't apply to you, but it just tells you where I'm coming from. Mason, just to let you know, those who are worried about it, Mason has learned how to stack all the way to the ceiling. This is an older photo from him, so don't worry about him developing that life skill. But anyway, our school staff did not have a transition coordinator, and we got no information on a transition process. All we got during the senior IEP was one of the therapists from the school saying, I think there's this place called Echo, and I think there's a place in Fairfax that hires special needs kids. That was it. Out of hundreds of organizations and everything they got, that's all we had. And so thank goodness, thank God for the ARC for what they're doing for you guys in this situation. So we ran into the ARC when we went to a resource fair. As you take a look at the talking points for on the right-hand side, they made all the difference. It all starts with their guide that she shows you, and I have another picture of it here. I call it gold, the golden ticket, because it's securing a future for your child with a disability. And it's like the golden ticket from Willy Wonka. It's the executive summary. Get a copy of it. You can download it from their website and read it from front to cover. It's the executive summary that allows you to understand everything else you're going to run into over the next year and a half. So it's a great place to help you keep your thoughts organized. If you don't start reading this from cover to cover, it'll be like buying a piece of furniture from IKEA and you're starting off at step 17 and you haven't done the previous step. So please make sure, if I have one point today, start with that to try to get yourself organized. I'm going to briefly talk about some of the other key decision points that I wish I had known about. The incredible importance of going to the resource fairs, because that actually makes things real for you. You actually talk to people who have services and programs, and you can find out more information about it. And I think you'll start hearing some. I'm sure Dan will. The ARC Coast host these, so I think they have one late October, early November, where they're going to start, and all the vendors and service providers will be there. You're going to see as many as from 30 to 60 based upon how many people sign up from that, and you're going to go from table to table and learn more details about what's right for your child. And then I'm going to talk about the decision points, not only with the resource fairs, but finally we'll talk about one way we use to frame your post-graduation goals. So Diane, if you don't mind going to the next slide. And it's a busy slide, but there's only really 3 points to it. And this is how I wish I had organized my time. I started the process and I tried to learn everything. I went to every table at a resource fair and I said, what about this? What about this? But really, there's 3 decision points that applied to us. The first one is really at your senior year IEP discussion. And you see some of the key inputs, and that's really to figure out where you think you're going to focus your child at. Are they college capable? Are they going to go to employment? And a statement about employment is all the IEPs have a strong bias to do employment. 3 out of our 4 goals for our son's IEP were about employment. He wasn't ready for employment. So I was really lost as far as, okay, this is not really helping me plan a future for my child, because he needs a lot more work before he's ready for employment, even for just a few minutes a day. And so you have to decide relatively early on, what are those kind of programs that you want to look at? And if you make that decision earlier in the year than later, like right around the IEP, then you could really focus your time and get into the details of those sort of things. The second key input is you've made your decision on generally what you want your child to do. And now you're going to the resource fairs, you're talking to the vendors at the resources, you're going to the site visits, and you're putting some flesh on the bones of that program that you want. And now you're starting to talk about, how do I finance this program that I want? A second part about that decision point number 2, and that generally happens right around January, February, March, and April as you're finishing all your site visits to these places, is there is something called a hybrid programs. And generally they're being developed by what I call mom and pop startups, or by therapists and special need professionals who see the need for this. And you might find one, and I'll give the example of Zaponic Farms, a family who has a special needs son. They develop their own nonprofit, and they do work, do a couple minutes of work growing vegetables that they now sell to George Mason Cafeteria. And then they'll take a break and go in and do some OT, some therapy, and some social skills. And so there's some hybrid programs out there, but you only find out about it if you read the ARC's information and you go to these resource fairs. So there are more and more of those type of hybrids popping up. Mostly, I call them startups, from parents and professionals in this area. And you can only find out about them if you stay clued into what the ARC is doing and making these visits. The last decision point, which I didn't find out about until after graduation, I thought that graduation happened and all these resources were available and lined up. But that's not true. It's going to take you several months after graduation to get them aligned. And sometimes it might take years based upon your priority. We were priority 1, so I thought we got everything when we graduated, but we're still waiting here, 3, 4, 5 months after graduation. So you have to develop, in my case, we had to develop an interim plan for our son while we're waiting to see if these resources fell through. So don't walk in with this that after graduation everything is solved. You still have to continue to solve things, especially in the post-graduation, because some of these programs like CSB they got 300 to 400 people per caseworker. They don't work that fast, and you have to make all your applications and things like that. So those are the 3 key decision points. Now, when I look back at my journey, that I wish I had started out knowing and planning for and getting ready for. So 1 right about the IEP, 1 about late spring as you're getting ready to graduate, and then finally after graduation as you're trying to align your resources. Last slide, please, Dave. And this is the last slide, and it shows you how we slowly became aware that there was a strong bias in what we had in the school systems towards employment. And it makes sense from a social and government responsibility point of view. But in our case, like I said, our son wasn't ready for employment. And so he needed a lot more life skills work and some anti-anxiety work and desensitization work and things along those lines. And so I was reading some of these webinars. There was a great webinar done by the University of Calgary in Canada, sponsored by the Autism Research Institute. And they talked about developing quality of life or thriving goals or wellness goals. All adults know this because they know that there's more than one thing you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do more than exercise and do more of your mindfulness and things like that. There's a lot of models out there. I took a model that I retired from the Army that we used in the Army just because I was used to it. But there's some models with 8 goals or essentials. There's some with 5, there's 4. I use these 4. And what it really helped me do is set an azimuth for what I wanted for my son Mason, define it, and then break it down, just like your basic project management, into what are the things I'm going to do to get him there. And you see, he needs to know that his life has meaning and he feels good for what he does, and then he needs to be well cared for as far as physically healthy. It affects so much. Don't feed him the empty carbs or he's going to stim for the rest of the day. And that he has a strong social and family network supporting him. And lastly, he's emotionally and mentally equipped. And so if you take a look at those goals on the right-hand side of the slide, then you just break it down. What am I going to do during this transition? What are the actions I'm going to set up? Who are the people I'm going to talk to at these resource fairs? They're going to help me build a program that accomplishes those goals for him. So he's overall got good wellness, and he's not just, as we were told initially for the first year and a half, it's all about employment when we get out of school. So that's it. That's the big points I wish I knew that someone had talked to me about as I started a transition program. We are still learning in this post-graduation phase. So let me know if you have any questions. I am going to send you my email address. So anytime during this transition period or any other time to your journey, I posted my email there. Just please give me a note and I'll do my best. If I don't know the answer, I'll connect you generally through the ARC with someone who does. So thanks very much, and let me know how I can support you. Thanks, Diane, for putting this program together.
Thank you so much, Doug, for sharing that information. Let me go, let's see, let me go to the next. So now what I wanted to, well, let me ask you real quick, does anyone have any questions for Doug while he's still here? You're welcome to put it into the chat, and we're happy to answer questions. All right, well, we will go to, let me just talk about the resources for the transition series. So you all should have received this in the email that I sent. This is also, so obviously besides the email, it's also available on our website under transit. You go to events. So if you lose your email somewhere or you don't have access to it, you can go to our website and under events, click on transition series, and you'll be, excuse me, you'll be able to access all of these weekly planners there. And the link in each weekly planner is live. So you don't have to, you just click on it when it's time, and everything will be recorded. So let me just share, except for one workshop. So this week we have, later coming up on Thursday, we have Successful Transition Planning in the IEP presented by Pizzi. That is the only webinar we have that is not going to be recorded. And then on Friday, we have the Danny Plan. That is the program that I mentioned about staying organized, an online tool. Next week, it's all about financing the future. So learning about Medicaid waivers, special needs trust, supplemental security income, so that's SSI, and also SSDI, that's and then that'll be presented by Marilyn Morrison. And then Able Now, those are Able Now accounts, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. And then, oh, I'm having difficulty with this page. Okay, and then going beyond that, the following week, we'll be talking about kind of living in the community. So housing options, navigating the bus and metro. And then we have some recorded webinars that you can learn more about Metro Access. The following week we're going to be focusing on post-secondary options. Twice throughout the series, we'll have 2 Q&As. If you looked on the registration, I was originally thinking about maybe having an in-person day, but we didn't get we got some interest, but not a ton of interest in that. So if you do have questions and want kind of a smaller group to ask questions, Lucy Beednell, our Director of Advocacy, and myself will host small roundtable Q&A sessions. Again, you just have to click on the link for that and join. Those sessions will not be recorded because they'll be more of a Q&A kind of a situation. And that week is going to focus on that October 21st to 25th week is going to focus on post-secondary options. So the Mason Life Program, the George Mason Autism Initiative, Mason Autism Initiative Program, College Steps, which works with Northern Virginia Community College. And then from Judy Bass from Bass Education Consulting, we'll be here to talk about post-secondary options, the skills that an individual needs to attend college. What are the resources? How do you find a college? So she'll be with us to talk about that. So then I also wanted to review, so as all of the webinars are recorded, you will have access. Again, this was in the email and also available on our website. This is what's called a Padlet. All of the slides will be available, and all of the links to the recordings, which will be on our YouTube channel, will be housed in this Padlet. So all you have to do is click on this, and you can go directly to all of the recordings, and that'll be updated continually. And then along with that, so there were lots of people I saw that registered that also have come to the transition series that was in person. If you were familiar with that, you would have gotten a big binder when you came with all of the paper throughout the series and supplemental materials in the binder. But since we are not doing that this year, it is all virtual. This is a link to our transition series companion resource Padlet. So here, again, this is a live document that I will continue to update. And it goes through all of the topics that we're going to cover. This is just a screenshot, but if you were looking at it live, it would scroll to the right and you would see lots of information from future planning to the IEP to supported decision making to post-secondary options to adult and day supports. So you'll be able to continually get information there. Some of it links to websites, some of them link to documents. So there is that information. And then finally, I did want to share with you for many years with our transition series, we had the pleasure of partnering with Marymount University, and the students in the Marymount University program who were studying to be special ed teachers organized workshops for our students while the parents were in the workshops. And they are going to continue to do that for us virtually over the series. They've organized 3 skills workshops over a period of 3 weeks. They're all in the evening, all on Mondays. And again, these are, you just click on these. You don't have to register for these. For those teachers who are maybe participating, please feel free to share these with your students. All they have to do is click on the link and they can participate. And it's a hands-on kind of interactive workshop.
Okay,
And then,
sorry to interrupt. You got a question from Naga. She raised your hand.
oh, let's see. Go ahead. Let me see if you could type it. Oh, here's some questions. Naga, if you could type it into the chat, that would be great. Let me just get through this last slide, and I'm going to go ahead and I didn't see the questions in the Q&A before, so now I see them. So I'll get to those in just a minute. I do want to just mention, again, if you saw the email, I started a GroupMe account, which you can access via your computer or you can download the app. You're welcome to join if you would like. This was to take the place of us being in person. One of the things that I loved about the transition series, it was allowed an opportunity to families to connect with each other and share stories and resources and ideas. Obviously, when you do it virtually, you can't do that. So I started the group Me. If you would like to be able to connect with the presenters and other parents and other professionals who are joining the series, please uh, click on the link there to join the group Me, and you can ask questions, connect with each other. I'll put reminders in there and other information. And that's my contact information. So let me go to, so with that, I'm going to stop recording and then I'm going to take all of your questions.